The mother tells Tezen this is his birthday's present. As they both look at the little squirrel at the cage, she asks if he knows what it is. The child, admiring the squirrel with visible excitement, guesses it to be a divine beast. Even then, unable to believe it, his mother tells him that is right. He recognized it correctly, and she bought it specially from the temple. His excited smile widens as he points out her divine beasts are incredibly expensive. His mother tells him, for such an outstanding magician's son, couldn't she do at least this much? The squirrel is watching them with narrowed eyes, giving them a "are you serious" look. She was reincarnated into a romance novel. The mother of a mere 11-year-old minor villain gives her as his birthday present. She thinks no matter what role she could get reincarnated into, she had to be into this absurd one. And to make matters worse, the ending might be a prison cell for her. In an instant, she was turned into a squirrel, and with the grand name of Divine Beast, she found herself here at the Duke of Hillen's estate. Hillen is a renowned magician family led by the strongest and most skilled magicians of their generation. But their power comes at a price. The strongest a magician is, the harder it is to contain their overwhelming magic, causing them immense suffering. The only being capable of calming that rampant magic is the Divine Beast. Needing a Divine Beast means possessing magic of immense magnitude. Thus, the Duchess of Hillen, Ella, stood up. She wanted to show everyone that her son's boundless magic was enough to require a Divine Beast. Even though it is not like his magic is that remarkable, it's barely enough to draw water from a shallow well. His mother then tells him to take the squirrel into his room. She has already engraved the seal of ownership on it, so there is no escaping from the Duke's estate. Just as she orders the squirrel to come out, she instantly jumps onto her palm. She remarks, "Look at that. It understands words, doesn't it?" She thinks, well, she doesn't want to wallow in despair, so she'll play the part of a noble gift just this once. However, his son does not share the same excitement as he crosses his arms, looking down at the squirrel. The squirrel looks back at him, wondering if he has a problem with that. He arches an eyebrow and remarks, "An animal that understands speech seems a bit creepy, doesn't it?" This makes the squirrel furious. She is trying to determine if he just mocked her. The mother points out it is not just any animal, it is a divine beast. Besides, according to legend, divine beasts that absorb a great deal of magic can even transform into humans. Tezen believes with his immense magic it wouldn't take long to achieve humanization, but if it becomes human and cannot understand speech, that would be troublesome. With an evil smirk, he looks down at the squirrel and then looks back at his mom, asking if eventually he will have one more servant to command, right? The squirrel flinches in his palm, thinking of the word servant. She wonders how does his mind leap straight to that the moment they talk about humanization. Besides, transforming into a human with his magic is completely out of the question. Oh, how right now she wishes to smack him upside the head, but alas, her short arms betray her. Such is the sorrow of this beast's life. Having to see this hopeless brat every day is already driving her insane. But still, the fact that this is in the Highland state might actually work in her favor, because in the highest room of the western tower of the Duke's mansion, there lies hidden the true villain of this novel and the Highland family's most powerful magician. A magician who is truly, truly extraordinary. She thinks if it is that person, maybe humanization wouldn't be just a dream. That is when someone knocks on the door telling Ella someone has come from the tower. Her whole demeanor shifts into a stern one as she inquires if something happened. The butler replies nothing major, just the young master collapsing from a high fever like last time. She says, "Oh, him again," her eyes cold shards as she murmurs, "He's not dead yet, is he?" The squirrel freezes in her spot. The man replies, "No, he merely lost consciousness temporarily. His life isn't in danger." She replies that it is a relief, but that doesn't look like it. She then instructs them to let him rest thoroughly and make sure no meals are prepared for him today. Squirrel watches from her cage as Tezen wishes her mother a safe trip. She's confused as to how she can react like this when the child has collapsed, even if she's just an adopted son, and realizes she's truly heartless. She also realizes collapsing is not a rare occurrence for him, and his condition might be worse than she thought. She thinks maybe she should bring something to him later. As she tries to pick on the nuts, she muses honestly, this story is really something. At least give that kid a meal. She stops at Tezen's bored voice, who wants her to put on a little show for him and refers to her as a servant. She fumes, wondering what is with the constant servant. She wants to ask him if he would do it for her if he was her. She just pretends she did not hear it. Tezen murmurs so it doesn't understand everything he says, huh? He starts to consider whether he should train it or something. She narrows her eyes at him, even when she looks a little afraid. She thinks this brat, judging by how he treats the servants, it's clear how badly he's going to torment her. She should avoid engaging with him before it gets any worse. She curls into herself, but he's nothing if not consistent. He keeps touching her, asking if she's sleeping and if she cannot hear him. But then he remarks boring, and he guesses it really is just an animal that only knows how to eat and sleep. She wants to counter Dumbo she used to be human. and no matter what, she will succeed at becoming human again. When he falls asleep, she decides to make her move and tells him off he go to Dreamland, pesky one. Check her supplies and escapes from the room. She climbs off the walls, feeling lucky for the first time to be a squirrel. As she finally reaches the tower, the child clutches his shoulder, panting heavily, his face flushed red. At the sound of the knock, his confused purple eyes lift and gleam when he spots the squirrel. He comes to the other side of the window thinking, what is a squirrel doing here? She knocks on the door again. He's confused and wonders if she's asking him to open this. He tells her to hold on a second and turns on the knob. But just then, her foot slips and she falls. She thinks there is no way. She hasn't even mastered basic magic, let alone transforming into a human. She pleads with him to save the squirrel, and before she can fall into the abyss, he catches her. He apologizes and asks if she's okay. She melts into his hand when she realizes she is alive, but then she feels a rippling sensation running through her. Confused, she looks at Johann and wonders if it is his magic. Just a brief touch and she could feel immense power. She looks at him with an unbelievable look. His magic is running so wild. How much pain must he be in? She decides to calm it down quickly and touches his nose with her tiny hand. His eyes widen in disbelief when he realizes the magic is being stabilized. He closes his eyes in relief as it doesn't hurt anymore. He looks down at her and says she is a divine beast. Judging by the mark on her, she realizes she must belong to Tezin and wants to know why she came all the way here. She lets out a squeak. He laughs in embarrassment because he totally forgot she cannot talk. She wonders if it is because he is still young. For a villain, he seems kind of clueless, and maybe a bit cute too. She thinks about how he is the greatest villain in this novel, Johann Harad. Back when he was still a child, his mother, the former Duchess, passed away. Duke Hyland remarried Ella, bringing Tezin into the family. Shortly after, the Duke was conscripted into war, leaving Johann still at the age of greeting love or alone. To make matters worse, at the age of 10, his magic awakened, leading to unbearable pain from constant magical surges. Ella, who wanted Tezin to be a hare, found the situation to be very inconvenient. She figured that Johann was ill and confined him to a tower, living in constant agony and isolation. Johann was eventually sent to the battlefield as part of Ella's scheme. 5 years from now, he would return home in triumph as a war hero who ended a long and brutal war. And with Johann's return, the tragedy begins. The Empire's most beautiful noblewoman, Lady Mariel, is bestowed as a reward to Johann, the war hero. Johann falls in love with her at first sight and desperately longs for her affection. But her heart already belongs to the crown prince, and he cannot win her over. The beginning of disaster. Driven by jealousy, he eventually becomes a villain who would stop at nothing using any means necessary to tear them apart. She looks at him with narrowed eyes, wondering how can this gentle and kind boy become the story's ultimate villain. Her eyes then land on his fingers that are fidgeting together continuously. He seems a little bit ashamed as he confesses it feels so nice when he's touching her like this, so would it be okay if he pets her a little more? She thinks, see, unlike some people, he is so sweet. When she nods, he says in excitement she's letting him and thanks her. He thinks about how he has been alone in this place for a long time, and he thinks this is the first time someone has stayed with him for so long when he's in pain. Just earlier, he was hurting and so lonely. He thought about how nice it would have been if he had never been born at all, or if he could have been born as someone ordinary. Until she showed up, he caresses her gently and thanks her as for the first time he's neither in pain nor lonely. Once again, he expresses his gratitude with a huge smile. She closes her eyes as if unable to bear his face. She thinks, what is this face that stirs such a productive instinct in her? She feels doomed because she was only planning to absorb magic quickly. That was all she thought about. He smiles shyly and asks her if she would be able to visit again tomorrow. He tells her she doesn't even need to calm him down, just letting him pet her or even just stopping by would be enough. She sniffles, feeling emotion because of course she was planning to come anyway, so she will visit every day. Beaming at her, he thanks her. In this short time, she can feel a gentleness and compassion from this boy. She thinks maybe he became someone who couldn't hesitate to harm others because he endured so much pain and loneliness for so long. But even if one person showed him love and care, couldn't there be a future for him? That's not as a villain. She doesn't know how much she can help as a squirrel, but is determined to do her best while she's here. She decides she will protect this pure and fragile boy. She then extends a nut to him. He asks her if this is for him and picks her up gently. He thanks her and promises to cherish it. He then lets her know starting tomorrow night he will leave the window open for her, so that she can come whenever she wants. She thinks this adorable little thing she would see him tomorrow. He stares at the same spot, unmoving for what feels like an eternity. Then with a slow tap of his fingers on the wood, his thoughts shift. He recalls the searing pain that had consumed him moments ago and wonders if this is the calming power of a divine beast. His voice cuts through the silence, cold just like his eyes as he mutters, "A divine beast of Tezen Ha, too bad. He has decided to take it for himself." As the squirrel has dozed off, Tezen reads about them. He reads the divine beast has the potential to take on human forms, so human-related titles are used for them. For example, when referring to gender instead of female or male, they are called woman or man. He finds it absurd because in the end they're just beasts, so why the fuss? He then reads one and can tell a divine beast's gender by the shape of its tail. He abruptly grabs the sleeping squirrel from the tail, deciding to check her gender. She panics thinking, what is this out of nowhere while she's sleeping? She struggles, dangling in the air as her tail feels like it's gonna fall off and wants him to let her go. He realizes, judging by the pattern, she's a female, no, a woman. She seems totally taken aback by that. He then hopes she is older than him, that way it will be easier to make her do things. And if she is too young and cannot understand what she is told, that will be just frustrating. She glares at him, thinking once she succeeds in becoming human, her connection with him is over. She thinks she will ask Johan to remove the Highland mark and leave this place immediately. She thinks about Johan and how he is a gentle and straightforward child, and since she's helping him too, she believes he wouldn't refuse her request. And once she becomes human, everything will fall into place. However, the problem is, how does she even become human? She wonders, how long does she have to survive on nothing but nuts? She glares at them as if they have done her real bad and not keep her tummy full. She doesn't know the exact conditions for becoming human, but if she keeps absorbing Johan's magic, she might find a clue. Sadness appears in her eyes as she curls into herself, wishing to really become a human already. She wants to get away from Tezen. As the moon hangs prettily in the sky, Johan gazes at the nut given to him by the squirrel. Thoughts of her swirl in his mind, and he wonders if she won't come today. A twinge of regret hits him, and he thinks he should have acted a bit more weaker back then. But then, as if summoned by his thoughts, the squirrel suddenly appears before his eyes. A genuine smile lights up his face. He greets her. She greets back, thinking that little thing is looking so pretty again today. She climbs onto his palm, and he questions if it was dangerous getting here, and that it must have been tough climbing over those hard walls. He puts her on the bed and tells her to take it easy. He wants her to be as comfortable as possible, but the only suitable place here is the bed. She cannot help but think, how can he be so kind? She jumps on the bed, wanting him to lay down quickly as she will give him top-notch service in return. He seems confused and taken aback. He tells her he's fine, but she insists he comes first and lie down. He finally relents with a smile and hops on the bed. As he settles on the bed, she uses her divine powers to calm him. As they lay in the comfortable silence, he breaks it by confessing that he wanted to repay her for the acorn she gave him, so he came up with a name for her. He asks her if she wishes to hear it. She freezes in place, only now she realizes that she doesn't have a name. She thinks about how Tezen keeps calling her servant every single day to the point of driving her crazy, but now this pretty thing only picks pretty words to say. When she lightly touches him, he takes it as her giving permission. However, when the name comes out of his mouth, she narrows his eyes at him in shock. He suggests Paul. He can see the expressions on her face and realizes she doesn't like it. Then Tom, she shakes her head. Carlyburn. She shakes it again. Maybe Dave. She wonders what is wrong with his naming sense. He sadly mumbles, so she doesn't like any of these, but that's all the names he has thought of. To say she looks confused would be an understatement. She gazes at him as if he has lost his mind with the names he's giving, but she decides to let it slide since he's cute. Next time he should come up with a cuter name. He promises to think of more, realizing he failed miserably. After a moment, she realizes it's been a while since they started stabilizing, yet his magic just keeps pouring in endlessly. She thinks maybe it is because she has experienced it once already, or she is absorbing a much larger amount than yesterday. She feels like if she keeps going, it will overflow. With that, she decides to not push it any further and stop here for today. He seems to have fallen into a deep sleep. She sighs and thinks another successful magic absorption today. However, suddenly something occurs, freaking her out. Light starts emanating around her, and she wonders, why is this happening after she stopped absorbing? But then, to her shock, she starts transforming into a human. She wonders, could this be just that moment? His eyes open a little. However, they widen instantly, and he jumps on the bed, staring at the beautiful girl with pink eyes in front of him. He looks flabbergasted, his whole face turning red as he mumbles, "Who?" She actually opens her mouth and words stumble out. She looks shocked because she can speak. She looks down at herself, her mouth dropping in disbelief as she thinks she is really human now. Now that the shock is overcome, she becomes visibly excited, finding it incredible and amazing that her voice sounds so young and her hands are tiny. But then someone wraps a blanket around her. Johan looks away and tells her to first cover herself properly. She smiles and thanks him, and then adds he must be really shocked, right? His face is still turned away, but he wants to know what's going on. She starts to explain to him, then the next moment she is transformed back into a divine beast. Stunned, she gazes at nothing and wonders what happened. Tezen reads that if divine beasts absorb a large amount of mana in a short time, they can temporarily transform into humans. However, this is only temporary. To achieve a complete transformation, they must absorb mana steadily for 50 days. If they transform into a human before the 50 days are up, all the mana they have accumulated will be depleted and nullified, or so it says. She wants to lash out at him that he should have read that earlier, as she's already experienced it now. He tugs on his hair, finding it annoying that it really takes 50 whole days. He then orders her, calling her a servant, and that she would have to track the date carefully from now on. She thinks fine now, he should tell her how to properly absorb mana steadily. He reads when she feels like she's taking in too much mana. She should not stop and keep absorbing to preserve the mana she has taken in. Now she realizes yesterday she should have kept absorbing mana without letting go. She nods now that she has got the hang of it, and next time she will definitely. She snaps out of her thoughts when Tezen mumbles she's really lucky, and that it's rare to find a mage capable of turning a divine beast into a human, and that mage just happens to be her master. She tells herself she is dead for now. She then realizes 50 days, if she keeps absorbing Johann's mana daily for 50 days, she can become human. She thinks she should know this information too to make cooperation easier, and wonders if there is some way to let him know. An idea lights up her mind. At the evening, she comes up with some letters with her. Johann looks down at her and wonders what is this? He guesses it might be a letter, but it turns to be a page from the book. He asks her why is she giving this to him. She just nods her head. She tries to tell him through body language that it is for her and him to communicate. However, he is confused and wonders if she's trying to tell him something. She hits her chest 2 times. He takes it as she likes to read. She snatches the paper from him and flips the pages. He takes it as she reads books of Helen's family. She nods and then makes an evil face, trying to imitate Tezen. He realizes she is saying he should study divine beasts with the books from Tezen. She thinks as expected, he is smart and understands body language so well. She climbs onto him, startling him. He wonders what is wrong, but she just taps him on the cheek, wanting him to tell he has done a good job. He ends up with a smile and asks her if she's praising him. He then reads the paper she has given him and turns his head back to her, acknowledging that if she absorbs mana for 50 days, he can become human again. Something flickers in his eyes as he thinks after 50 days he will be able to see that form again. He ends up blurting out that it was so cute. When she asks her what he means, he panics, saying nothing. With a smile, he thinks to himself. He really hopes he can see her again. The next day, Tezen snaps. What the hell? Looking at the torn page from the book, he wonders what has gone wrong with it. He then asks her if she knows anything about it. She wants to tell him, ask her 100 times if he wants. Does he think she will answer? He starts looking around, saying, did his mana go berserk while he was asleep? He sighs, looking beneath the table, musing that life with power is so troublesome that he can't even get a peaceful night's sleep anymore. He looks around, unable to find it anywhere. He wonders just how far the page flew off to. She thinks about how he's enjoying his own one-man show. It's driving her crazy, and she's heard this nonsense so often that it's almost like ASMR now. Heavy rain falls outside, his gaze lands on it, and an excited gleam comes into his eyes. He suddenly picks her up, saying, stop sleeping and come with him, deciding to show her something fun. She looks back at him, thinking this guy is so excited about the rain. What is he? Some kind of worm? And judging by the way he's looking, it's probably nothing good. Her eyes widen when they land on the same thing he's looking at. He murmurs, look over there. On rainy days, patients start taking walks. Johann is walking in the heavy rain outside. She was rigid in his arms. He claims that the head doctor says it's good to let them get wet in the rain. Since they have a high fever, it's apparently the perfect treatment. She wants to lash out. What kind of treatment is that? A child who is already in pain just from their magic to make them follow such a quack treatment. Everyone has lost their minds. As she gazes at him, she wonders what she should do. His complexion looks really bad. And if she leaves him like this, his condition will only worsen. Suddenly, he throws her away, stating he would go help treat his poor brother. She knows he's not going to help, but just to torment him. Deciding she cannot let that happen, she sets forth to help him. She doesn't know how much she needs, but decides to take everything as much as she can, grabbing everything and putting it all in her mouth. She then rushes out, wanting him to wait a little. She's coming to save him. On the other side, Ella gazes outside the window and remarks no matter how she looks at it, their elder son seems to be in better condition than usual. She gazes sternly at the doctor and questions if the treatment is really working. The doctor quickly apologizes and admits his condition has slightly improved over the past few days. However, he assures her not to worry, saying hypothermia is a special remedy for wizards. He also points out that since it will rain until evening today, The treatment will last longer than usual, and he will quickly return to his original state. She says he is an excellent doctor, and she trusts him that he'll continue to take care of Johann. The hidden message is clear enough. He bows and leaves. Ella thinks Johann is a thorn in her side. When she first learned he was born with magic, her blood ran cold. She almost thought of getting rid of him right away. She has kept him alive for years to prevent any scandal regarding the death of the Duke's heir. And now, because of the war oath, she cannot eliminate him. As the long war weakened the imperial power, it was the imperial countermeasure, fearing that the nobility's influence would grow in response. The head of a noble family must participate in the battlefield. If they fall in battle, a direct family member from the household must take their place. She cannot send Tezin to such a dreadful place, so she has no choice but to keep him alive as a substitute until the war ends. As she gazes at him from a distance, she thanks him. Thanks to him, she's just clinging to this insignificant life. One of the women with him tells him to slow down a bit as they still have a long way to go on the walk, so if they delay too much, it'll be troublesome, and asks her to be more cooperative with the doctor's prescription. Now that the squirrel is seeing it up close, the situation is even more serious. She realizes he is in so much pain, and yet no one shows the slightest bits of sympathy. She thinks it is Oak. In the original story, he might not have had any allies, but in this story, she will fight alongside him. With that said, she throws the things she brought with her at the maids. It hits them in the intended place, and they both freak out. Crouching down, their eyes hurting from the hit, Johann, surprised, looks down at the acorn. After picking it up, he frantically looks around, realizing it is her. He also understands this is the best time for him to escape. Not wasting a moment, he rushes off. The maids try to run after him but fail. Once he is left, the squirrel sighs in relief and admires herself for the perfect hit. That was so awesome. She could not expect it to land so well. Maybe she's got some talent. She decides that now that he has returned to the tower, she should leave too, but her attention is instantly grabbed by Tezin, who demands to know where he went after he went through all the trouble of fetching water. The maids tremble before him, and one of them explains that while they were momentarily distracted, he went back into the tower. His hand clenches and he snaps at them, throwing the water at both of them, teeth clenched. Just then, his mother appears behind him, telling him to stop. However, he complains it was a rare opportunity for a good distraction, and that is ruined because of them. However, his mother corrects his words. What he means to say is that he wanted to help his brother's treatment more. She then says she understands, but there is no need to be too disappointed that he could not see his brother today. When their special guests arrive tomorrow, he will have him called then. She suggests, wouldn't it be more enjoyable to welcome the guests together with his brother tomorrow? A genuine smile adorns his face as he thinks if it's a guest tomorrow, she's talking about the Duchess and the young lady, right? The squirrel flinches at the mention of the Metis young lady who is the heroine of the story. She wonders, is Johann really meeting the heroine already? According to the original story, Johann and Mary are not supposed to meet until after the war ends. She wonders, could it be because she helped him today that something got twisted? They must be planning to humiliate him even worse tomorrow for not going along with their plans today. She realizes they will put him on display, comparing him to Tezin and utterly disgracing him. She thinks it is truly cruel. Ella instructs her son to show off his magical talent tomorrow and let's bring his divine beasts as well. Her mouth drops open, hearing they are bringing her along too. At nighttime, he opens the tower's window with great difficulty. He leans against his bed and thinks maybe it is because he got caught in rain, but he doesn't feel as well as usual. Though he believes the squirrel will make him feel better, he just has to endure a bit longer. Tired eyes glance down and look at the thing in his hand. At first, he thought of thoroughly using it. If he could stabilize his magic with that divine beast and use spells again, he could finally overturn this miserable Duke down. So when he realized the squirrel needed his magic to become human, he actually felt relieved. As long as their interests aligned, that squirrel would keep coming back to him. That's why he convinced himself that the squirrel and him were just merely using each other. That's what he kept telling himself. Then why? He stepped up to help him for the first time. She jumps through the window and lands on him. He manages a smile and says she's here. He also thanks her for earlier. As thanks to her, he got less wet in the rain and his body feels better. Though we cannot help but wonder if he can trust her. She uses her power to calm him again. For the first time in his life, someone he could call his only ally. Later, he is sleeping and the squirrel thinks his magic has calmed down, but the fever has not reduced. Sadness flickers in her eyes as she thinks as if being sick isn't bad enough. Tomorrow, he will also be humiliated in front of outsiders too, parading him in this condition in front of others. It's basically announcing that the eldest son of the family isn't fit to inherit anything. As always, is going exactly the way Ella wants. Tezin's position will only become more powerful, and she will have to watch that disaster unfold with her own eyes tomorrow. And then she thinks about Tezen, thinking that if he wasn't annoying enough already today, he was completely insufferable. She reveals he even put on a face mask to impress Mary. She actually contemplates leaving some footprints on his face while he is sleeping. She thinks his face is all probably smooth now, so the footprints would stand out even more. Perfect. She decides it's time to storm over and stomp a footprint on his face. As she is leaving, she is stopped by Johan, who asks her if she is already leaving. He whispers in a sad voice that she hasn't been here long at all. She feels overwhelmed in front of his sad face and wants to tell him it's all for his sake. But when he remains sad like that, she decides it cannot be helped and rushes towards him. She thinks tomorrow's going to be another rough day and she should at least comfort him a bit before she leaves. He seems confused as she gestures to him to do something. He wonders if he wants her to open his hand. When he does, she jumps on his palms and starts cuddling. He gazes down at her in confusion and wonders, what is that supposed to mean? She pats her belly and wonders what is he waiting for. Just try it, you will feel better. He questions if she wishes for him to rub her belly. He does as she says and realizes it is so warm and comforting. She thinks it feels refreshing for her too. As she dozes off to sleep in the darkness of the night, he dares to confess that he wishes he could stay with her forever. His squirrel, a paper flies in from somewhere, and in it is written that when divine beasts soothe magicians, the magicians develop an intense sense of possession toward the beast. In extreme cases, it cannot even bear to see their beast with another magician, overwhelmed by jealousy. The next day, Tezen looks at the squirrel and remarks, she is all dressed up today. Poor Squirrel was scrubbed clean by the servants from head to toe this morning. She gives him a side eye and observes he's dressed up as well. He enters the dining room and apologizes for being late, saying he was delayed by the divine beast soothing ritual. As the magic in his body was giving him a headache, the squirrel thinks how the nerve always spewing lies when he opens his mouth. But then her gaze falls on Mary. She is absolutely stunning, and she thinks she's the most beautiful woman in the world. She wonders what Johan's reaction would be. Maybe he fell for her at first sight, but then her gaze shifts and lands on him. She's stunned when she realizes he's not looking at Mary at all. He's looking at her. His gaze is intense with something almost possessive flickering in it. She wonders, why is he looking at her like that?